What's going on, Mud Life Gang? We're back with another video. Today we're going to be changing the diff fluid and also doing a flush on the rear diff. I ended up swamping this thing last weekend. Didn't get any water in the air box, but we got quite a bit of water in the diff and we got quite a bit of water in the gearbox, I'm assuming. That being said, I did start recording before now, or at least I thought I did. However, I guess I didn't press the record button because, as you see, I've already drained the diff, got all the mud out of it, which it was pretty gross, as you can see. But we're gonna get back to it. What you're gonna need is an old gear oil jug. This isn't anything I put in here. This is just an old jug. We're gonna be using it for the nipple. This is full of diesel fuel. So we're gonna be flushing this with diesel fuel. You also need a clear line. Any clear tube that'll fit on the nipple will work. So that being said, let's get into it and go ahead and take the top bolt back out. This is the fill. We're also going to change the oil filter and spark plugs, and after that we're going to see if we can't get rid of the maintenance required on the startup screen. A lot of people say you can do it with the headlight switch, but we shall see. Alright, so we've got that in there. Now we're just going to put this on the diesel fuel nipple. Get that down there good so we don't leak. We're gonna hold it up. We're going to start filling it till it comes out. Diesel fuel. Alright, so now we got the fuel coming out. So that's good right there. So go ahead and set that down. And now we're just going to slowly turn the wheels. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to make sure that all the muck and mud gets cleaned out of there. Get it to catch up with that diesel fuel. Alright, that should be good for the first flush. So now what we're going to do is take the drain bolt back out. And watch the diesel fuel come out. Now we're just going to repeat the process. The drain bolt back in. You don't have to tighten it all the way. I just put it about 4 or 5 turns in, and that seems to get it to where it doesn't leak. I don't really care if it loses a little bit. After all, we're just flushing it. Alright, we're going to turn the wheels again. And again, we're just doing this to make sure that we don't have any leftover junk in there. We want it all out. Don't want any mud in our diff. Alright, so we flushed it 11 times with the diesel fuel. So we're going to do it one more time just to show you guys that it came out clear. But this is what you're going to be looking for as the end result. So we're going to go ahead and spin the wheels one more time. Get everything nice and mixed in. What you gotta do when you swamp your machine. We were pretty rough with this last weekend. Had it underwater for about an hour and a half to 2 hours total time throughout the weekend. So that being said, this is the type of stuff you gotta look for. These seals right here around the axle, that's kind of where the water seeps in at. should be good. We'll go ahead and show you guys that the fluid is coming out clean now. This is the end result that you're looking for. Coming out looking like diesel fuel. Probably gonna do it one more time just to be extra sure. So that'll be 13 in total, and it may be different for you. It could be less times to come out clear, it could be more. Just depends on how bad you swamp this thing, honestly. I mean, this goes for Outlanders, Renegades, I assume side-by-sides as well. If you swamp your diff, this is the easiest way, not having to take the axles out and everything to flush it. She's coming out clean, so we won't. So we're gonna go ahead and lower the bike down, and we're gonna let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes with the plugs out, just to make sure all the diesel fluid completely drains out. Alright, so now that we've got it flushed, we're gonna go ahead and put the gear oil in. First, we're gonna put some in without the drain plug in, just so that way we can make sure oil is the thing coming out. For the diff and rear gearbox, you have 75 weight 140, and for the front diff, they call for 75 weight 90. And just so you're to be clear, it does have to be GL5 spec or up to that requirement. So now that we've got this opened up, we're going to go ahead and put the tip of the 75 140 on the hose. And put the hose in the hole, like so. We're just going to run some oil down to it. And again, we're going to do this without the drain plug in, so that way we know we've got oil pushing that diesel fuel out that's left in there. Alright, so we got some oil going in. And now we've got oil dripping out. Let's go ahead and squeeze a little bit more in there. There we go. Now we got a nice solid drip of oil. That's what we're looking for. I'm just gonna make sure all that diesel fuel comes out. Alright, so we can go ahead and put the drain plug back in. You don't want to go much more than about as tight as you can get it with your hand, due to the fact you don't want to strip off that little bolt in there. If you strip off that, you might be in trouble, friends. Alright, so now that we've got the drain plug back in, we can go ahead and pump her full of oil until she starts putting oil out the fill hole. Alright, and there we go. Now it's steadily coming out. Alright, now it's pretty much stopped dripping. We can go ahead and put the fill plug back in. And then we'll move on to the gearbox. Alright, so on the gearbox, you've got a 15mm filler bolt. And then down in there, I don't know how well you guys can see it, but it's right up under that box, right there. So right there, there is a bolt that is a 13mm. This is a 13mm we're going to be breaking loose. Wow, that was really loose. I don't think that was supposed to be that loose. And let's see what we got in there. Well, we got oil, so that's good. No water in there, so that's a very good sign. A lot better than the rear diff. Wish you guys could have seen that on camera. It was full of water. We'll come back to you when it's done draining. While that's draining, we'll go ahead and break that 15 millimeter filler loose. Just get that on there. And break that loose. You want to be gentle with this one because it is plastic. Alright, so now that it's all drained and we've got our drain bolt cleaned up, and you want to see, that's what it should look like. Don't want any dirt in between there. We put our washer back on the bolt, like so. And we're going to go ahead and put that back in there. The same method as the rear diff. We're going to put the hose in, and we're going to fill till it starts coming out. We've got a steady drip coming out of there. So we'll go ahead and take this down. Once we get done with the front diff, which we're about to move on to next, we'll be doing the oil. We've got the oil filter right here behind this cover. Got the oil dipstick, and you do have to take this footboard off to get to that. To do that, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts here. You've got 2 push pins here on both sides, and then you've also got 2 torque screws here on both sides, and 1 big torque screw going down to get it off. You also have to take the midsection off. There's 1 push pin going right there on it. Alright, so now we're on the front diff. You're gonna have your fill bolt right there. And then the drain is actually gonna be right here. At least that's what it looks like. We're gonna find out in just a minute. I'd say we're good. The front diff looks clean. So that right there is a great sign. Now that it's pretty much done draining, we can go ahead and put our plug back in. Alright, now we got a steady flow coming out. We'll go ahead and stop. Alright, so we went ahead and took the front tire off so we can show you what's up under the front end. You've got 10 grease fittings up under the front end in total, 5 on each side. So you have 1 right there for the sway arm. I went ahead and put some grease in that one so that I can show you what I'm talking about. So when you put grease in these, you want to make sure that you pump it until you see fresh grease. So not fresh grease on the fitting, but fresh grease on the actual bushing. So you see we've got some grease coming out, that's what we want. So you've got 1 there on each side. Then you've got, if you can see, on both sides you have to go to the opposite side to grease the lower control arm. So this one's right here, and there's 1 directly across. Same thing for the upper control arm. So you see there's 1 directly across, and then 1 right there on the control arm. And then on the front of the control arms, they're both facing this way, so you have 1 there, and there's 1 right there. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get those greased up, and we'll get back to you shortly. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the rear. So you have 1 right here. That's where the sway arm connects to the trailing arm. Then you have 1 right here, right above that. And then you have another easy one right here. So 3 on both sides, 6 in total on the rear. And go ahead and get those greased up, and then we'll get on to the oil change. So now that we have everything greased, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our oil change kit. So we've got 3 quarts of oil. It doesn't quite hold 3 quarts, but they give you 3 quarts in the 500 or more kit. You got your oil filter, you got your new washers and rings. And then we're gonna go ahead and get over here. So you have 3 8mm bolts on the oil filter cover. And then the oil drain is actually right through here on the bottom of the, I guess you'd call this footboard rail. But we're going to be using a 11/16 socket for that. So let's get you guys set up and get this oil draining. Now that we've got our pan up under here, let's go ahead and break this bolt free. So someone puts that drain bolt on with some force. She broke. Alright. Go ahead and get this somewhat up under here, that way as soon as it starts dripping, kind of catch it. I think the bolt actually, yep, the bolt got stuck up there, which is fine. We'll grab it in a minute. We just got oil all over the floor, boys. We should have used a shorter extension. Learn from my mistake. Use the short extension. No water in the oil though, so that's a plus. Seems like the rear diff is the only thing that had water in it, and from what I've read online, that seems pretty common with these things. The rear diff, the seals go out around the axles and you get a leak, so that's no bueno. We'll have to be replacing those soon. Get back to you when it's oil finished draining. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take our 8mm and we're going to break those bolts on the oil filter cover loose. Alright, so there's the old oil filter. That out of there. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take our O-ring, we're going to place it on this cap. So we're going to take the O-ring, I'm just going to walk it around and slide it all the way down. And once you have the O-ring all the way down flush, we're just going to take our finger and dip it in the new oil. You see, we got a nice good drip. And we're just going to run it around the O-ring, make that O-ring nice and oily so that way it doesn't pinch it and everything seats. We're going to take the oil filter and we're going to simply get some oil around the black piece right here. Filter goes in just like this. Onto the center. And your cap goes back on and you put your bolts in. Make sure you put your new washer on your drain plug. Alright, so it says it takes 2.11 quarts. Now that we've got our funnel, we're going to go ahead and start putting oil in it. Make sure you do it slowly. I learned that if you try to put it in there too fast, it will start coming out of the fill hole. 2 quarts down. Let's open up our 3rd quart. And again, remember, it holds 2.11 quarts. So with that being said, we're just going to put a little splash in there like that. Maybe a little bit more. We're going to pull the funnel out. And we're going to take our dipstick. Got you a nice towel sitting down somewhere. We're going to take our dipstick, put it in, and see what we're at. Make sure you're on level ground. just a little bit above the full line, but the oil filter is empty. So what we're gonna do is close that back up, and we're gonna give the bike a quick start. And what that should do is get the oil flowing through the motor, and then the level on the stick should actually drop. Alright, so let's go ahead and crank it up and get the oil flowing. And we're going to bump it a couple times before we actually get it started. The reason we want to do that is to get the oil pumping through all the bearings and everything. So here we go. Now that it's ran for a couple seconds, we're going to take the dipstick back out, wipe it off again, and recheck the oil level. And we should be right where we're supposed to be. Could be a little bit lower though. So if you see that, we're just a hair low on oil. So now, that's why we check it twice. So now we'll just add a little bit more. Take it like this, and go splash, a little splash, and that should be it. So now we'll check it one more time. And look at that, perfect. All right, so now that we're onto the spark plug, this is the rear cylinder spark plug. All right, so that was a little bit of a pain in the butt. But if you wiggle it enough, it'll come out of there. This is the new plug. I'm gonna go ahead and put the new plug in. Alright, that feels nice and tight. Now we're just gonna put the boot back on and make sure it snaps down on the plug. There we go. That's the sound you want to hear. Now to get our second plug out, we've got to take this panel right here off. Technically I'd take both of them off. I mean, that's just the easiest way, because this one will kind of get in your way if you don't. But we're gonna try just taking this one off. You've got 1, 2 push pins there, and then 2 push pins right here behind the shock. So let's go ahead and get those out, and we'll get back to you when we're done with that. By the way, this is the best tool ever. If you don't have one of these, get you one, because it makes taking these plastics apart so much easier. Alright, so hopefully you guys can see, but the spark plug for the second cylinder or the front cylinder is going to be right there where the light's shining. So hopefully you guys can see that. We went ahead and got the boot off. Now we're just going to take it loose. Get back to you when we're done with that. Alright, so we're going to be resetting the maintenance required light. To do so, you're going to make sure you're in the high beam position. So you're going to turn the switch on but not start the machine. You're going to press the start button. Make the screen light up. You'll see your maintenance required light. You can't do this if it doesn't say maintenance required. Well, I guess you could, but it's not really gonna do anything. Sit you guys back down. You're gonna wanna hold the set button. And again, you wanna make sure you're on the odometer. So you're gonna hold the set button and you're gonna flip the light switch 3 times in 2 seconds. required light should be gone. There we go. Performance key. No more maintenance required. And just to show you guys that worked again, I'm gonna let it cut back off. And then once it does that, we'll actually start the bike this time. So there you have it. That's how to reset your maintenance required light and do a full maintenance on a Can-Am 850, Renegade, Outlander, even the 1000s. It's all the same procedure. Have a great day, guys.